I know I spoke on this before, and it's definitely a topic that I think that really should be resurfaced because I feel like the Clippers have an opportunity to jump on a player that I feel like that will help them out tremendously based upon the roster that they still have and the current guys they still have on their team as we speak. And the player I've been speaking of, and I spoke of before, I actually spoke about him some last offseason. Now that we're officially in the offseason, now the finals is over. Congratulations to the Nuggets, even though I'm not a fan. But congratulations to them and Jokic for winning their first, which is a very tough thing to do. Hopefully, the Clippers be able to do the same thing when they get their opportunity if they stay healthy enough to do so. But the player I'm talking about that the Clippers don't need to let pass by, where they have an opportunity to get him now, especially now the fact that he opted out of or he opted out in regards to the Toronto Raptors offering him a contract is Fred VanVleet. I've said before, Fred VanVleet is one of those type players to me where he's priceless because he is a good point guard. He can give you good minutes. He knocks down big shots. And, he is a fearless type dude. And we saw him in NBA Finals with Kawhi Leonard and Norman Powell and the rest of them on the Toronto Raptors. And you could have made a case that he could have been a second runner-up to the Finals MVP, for that run that the Toronto Raptors had with Kawhi Leonard because he played so well. He played Stephen Curry very well defensively. He got up in him. He defended him real tightly. He didn't let him breathe. He didn't give him any airspace. And on top of that, how many big jumpers, if you go back and look at the highlights, how many big shots did he hit in the NBA Finals against, a Warriors team? Even though they were down KD, they still had Clay and Steph, or at least Clay and Steph for a few games up to game 3 or 4. Then after game 4, I think, Clay went out. But either way, they still had Clay for 3 or 4 games of the season. Of that series where they could have took, a dominant lead, go up 3-1 or 2-1 or whatever the case may be. They still had the opportunity. And, the fact that the Toronto Raptors won 2 games in, Golden State, that pretty much ended the series to me. But, of course, Fred VanVleet was still a huge part of them winning those games and a huge part of them winning those games, especially when it came down to the second half of the game, the third and the fourth quarter. That's when he really, sparked up and, lit a fuse for them and got hot. And, we got to remember, Fred VanVleet did this while I think his wife or girlfriend was pregnant and he was barely getting sleep. And he still went out there and cooked the Warriors, and a big part of the reason why Toronto won. And that's what I like about Fred VanVleet, his fearlessness. And, you can never have enough of those guys on your roster to me. And on top of that, he's a great, really good, I would say he's a great 6-man coming off the bench because you know what you're getting out of him. He's won 6-man the year before, I think multiple times. And he plays the position really well in the point guard role. He can actually be a starting point guard if he wanted to, but coming off the bench is really his preference. But either way, if the Clippers made him a starter or not, getting a player like him is going to really serve you value because he has a lot of value. And on top of that, he's a championship caliber point guard. He's won a championship before, and those guys who won championships, they know what it's like to get there. They know what it takes to be the best they need to be to get there, and making mistakes in regards to turnovers and things like that is not something that championship caliber point guards or championship players predicate themselves off of. They'll make mistakes, but they make sure they do better on the next one or try to, that fuels them to do better. And to me, Fred VanVleet is one of those guys. He's one of them guys that plays with a chip on his shoulder as well because he came to this league undrafted, basically. He didn't make the draft, even though, he was projected to go pretty high. But even still, he worked his butt off and got to where he is now. He's won a championship. He's been in the league a while, and he fits with Kawhi Leonard very, very well, along with Norman Powell. So my point is, even still, you got to look at the situation and say the Clippers, if they got a chance to get a point guard like him, well, a lot of your problems might go away because turnovers, he's gonna kill that. He's not gonna turn the ball over. And on top of that, he can shoot the 3. He's a good shooter. He can shoot from the perimeter. He's a good free throw shooter. He's a good mid-range shooter. And there again, he's fearless. So with that mindset he has, with shooting a pretty good percentage from the field the way he does, that can make, somebody like Russ obsolete. Whereas if they kept Russ, they can have him come off the bench or flip-flop back and forth, just have Russ start the first few minutes of a game and Fred VanVleet end a game. Because ending a game with Fred VanVleet, if the Clippers acquired him, would be better. because Fred VanVleet is more of a closer to me. Like I said, the second half of games is when he really starts to knock down shots, especially when you need him to. And he plays defense a lot better and a lot more sound than somebody like, Russ would at times. Russ has moments where he plays defense, but Fred VanVleet is going to go out there and compete 110% of the time, not turn the ball over as much. He shoots better than a Russell Westbrook and or Terrence Mann. He shoots a higher percentage, and he's more trustworthy in big moments, as we've seen him do before, because he's won a championship with Kawhi Leonard, I might add. So there again, adding somebody to the Clippers that Kawhi Leonard trusts, adding somebody to the Clippers that has championship DNA, it definitely can't hurt the Clippers. So to me, they definitely need to jump on this opportunity, especially with Fred VanVleet not wanting to sign the $22 million option that he had with the Toronto Raptors, because he's looking to go elsewhere and better his career and maybe possibly win another championship. And if that's the case, the Clippers definitely have a good chance, because they definitely have enough space to get him in there. They definitely can cut bait with some people or some players on their roster to get somebody like him who's going to serve value and who you're going to get value out of in big moments in playoff games. So it's like, to me, if the Clippers really want to go after the winning formula, the winning type players, here's one of the type players I think the Clippers wouldn't mind having. And definitely, I definitely think that, Fred VanVleet wouldn't mind playing with Kawhi Leonard again, because the only championship and the only success, championship wise he's had in the league was with Kawhi Leonard and Norman Powell, who's on the Clippers, I might add. So, honestly, the only thing they have to do then is probably get maybe a Kyle Lowry or somebody like that and make it Toronto 2.0. But either way, that's not going to happen. But either way, still, the Clippers going after somebody like him would be very valuable. And I'm telling you, it would serve good for the Clippers in the long run. The Clippers need to stop trying to do these quick fixes and go out and get Russell Westbrooks and people like that just to try to put into place, to try to, prove something to the Lakers. You have nothing to prove to the Lakers. The Lakers have nothing to prove to you. Go out and get a supreme caliber point guard who doesn't turn the ball over and who can shoot. That's basically what the Clippers need to do in a nutshell. You need a point guard who can stretch the floor and one who doesn't turn the ball over much. And Fred VanVleet is one of those point guards. And even still, if you wanted to keep Russ, you can. Just let Russ be in the starting lineup. Let him play the first 6 to 8 minutes of the first quarter, and then you shift and rotate with Fred VanVleet in and out the lineup. Sometimes you could put him in the starting lineup if you need to, if Russ is going through one of them struggle phases that he has of turning the ball over exponentially too much. Then you can go with somebody like Fred VanVleet. It's a perfect operation, and I definitely think the Clippers need to look into it. Like I said, if they decide to keep Russ, they can do that. If they don't, if they got Fred VanVleet, they wouldn't need to keep Russ or whatever they choose to do. They would have the point guard they need, I think, that can get them over the hump. So, the opportunity's here. Let's see what the Clippers do. But as always, leave any comments in the comment section. Let me know what you think, and we'll talk about it.